Hey everyone, and welcome back to ScarletSprites. I want to thank Bitmap Bureau and Numskull Games for the opportunity to play and talk about their new game, Final Vendetta, today. If you're a beat-em-up or arcade-style gaming fan, this is probably going to be worth your time. You're going to want to stick around and check this out. So just by the nature and content on this channel, which is primarily Neo Geo and arcade gaming, there really aren't a lot of new products that hit the mainstream that I get asked to cover here. So whenever there is something shiny and new like this that fits, it's always fun and exciting for me. So Bitmap Bureau most recently brought us Xeno Crisis for multiple different platforms. Now, that's a top-down arena shooter, and by and large, that was a pretty big hit with a lot of gamers out there. I myself had the Genesis ROM for this, as well as the Neo Geo MVS cartridge, and I've poured a lot of hours into Xeno Crisis and feel pretty comfortable saying it's a great experience, which means Bitmap Bureau really raised my expectations for subsequent releases. These guys do great work. I like that they switched genres up from the arena shooter and went with a beat-em-up in Final Vendetta. I guess maybe selfishly I was curious to see what this group could do for other genres, and my curiosity has definitely been satisfied. I briefly touched on this game appealing to me because of its arcade inspiration. I mean, even its name, Final Vendetta, is seemingly a mashup of two pretty great arcade brawlers, Final Fight and, well, Vendetta. I think most people probably know Final Fight pretty well. I'm a pretty big fan of that one myself, and it's one of the earlier arcade PCBs that I bought. But Vendetta is one that may have slid under a few more people's radar. It's a early 90s beat-em-up from Konami that probably got buried a bit after Konami started licensing everything like Turtles, Simpsons, and G.I. Joe. But it's no surprise to any of you who regularly watch, arcade gaming is where my heart is. And conveniently, most arcade games have the ability to offer a pick-up-and-play experience that doesn't require a huge time investment. Now, I might only have 20 or 30 minutes to play uninterrupted in a day, and so arcade games often cater to that need. Well, I'm happy to report that Final Vendetta feels right at home as an arcade-type title. The very first time I loaded this up, I felt like I had just dropped a quarter into my PC. There's a brief tutorial showing you what the controls are, kind of reminds me a lot of Neo Geo games, and then the game just drops you right into the action. Now I'm getting older, free time is at a premium, and I don't want an overly steep learning curve to a new game. I can't spend the few minutes that I do have each day learning a complex battle or inventory system. Final Vendetta isn't going to do that to you. It's going to drop you in, get you playing and having fun immediately. But that's kind of the beauty of this game, and another thing that ties it to the old school arcade titles. There's a somewhat hidden layer of complexity here that unfolds if you allow it to. Well, sure, you can still smash your way through a few stages and enjoy yourself without having to really think too hard. But if you want to take things to the next level, you'll start to have to use some familiar strategies that you may have picked up from beat-em-ups in the past. And the game can be a bit humbling in this regard. It starts off kind of simple and easy to get you going, but then the difficulty really does bump up with each subsequent stage. And in fact, the game can get quite hard at times. This is exactly what you would want from this type of game though. It's just another testament to Bitmap Bureau's attention to the nuances of pacing, and further validation that these guys do know what they're doing when they build a game. As far as difficulty goes though, if I had to pick out a small complaint, it's that the boss battles can feel a bit easy. The grind is really making it through the stage without dying, and the boss is then just kind of the last stop before you clear. I don't really know how else to describe it, but maybe the Mad Scientist is the best example of this. The strategy here is really to just be facing in the correct direction. I suppose overall I kind of like the idea that the stage itself is the obstacle. Just wish some of the boss battles were a little bit more frantic, maybe. Overall though, it's a very minor nitpick and just a subjective opinion. And while we are talking subjective opinions, I'll give you one on the character selection. They nailed it. The guys did a great job making sure each of these characters feels different in the game. It's really hard for me to get Final Fight out of my head when I'm playing this, and that's certainly not a bad thing, but I keep coming back to Miller being the game's Haggard. He's definitely the barroom brawler and strength-based character, and he has a violently animated backbreaker that would even make Bane blush. He's definitely my favorite character to play as in Final Vendetta. That's not to say Duke and Claire are slouches though, and in fact, on a few runs with Duke, I actually felt like the game was a lot easier. He's speedy, and it's easy to juggle enemies with him, making him pretty deadly as he can clear a screen pretty easily. He might arguably be the best player for beginners. Now, I admittedly only played the game as Claire a few times, and while she certainly has her own uniqueness as a character, she felt a little more generic to me than the other two choices, whose positive attributes stand out almost immediately. She also has the least amount of health of the three characters, but she does have a variety of different moves and seems to be the most deep as far as that goes. Beating the game with each character unlocks different modes within the game as well. There's a survival mode for beating the game with Duke, a boss rush mode for Claire, an ultra mode for Miller, and a training mode that will unlock when you first complete the game. I haven't really talked too much about the overall style and vibe of this game yet, but I like that the sprites feel appropriately sized for what's going on here. They're not quite as tall and thin as Final Fight characters, but also feel a bit larger than what you would find in Vendetta. I have noted that I like what was done for the protagonists in this one, but the enemies are also animated and given some real personality. As you would expect in a beat-em-up though, you'll see a lot of repetition with enemy types, and the bench here, it's not overly deep, but it suffices and is in line with the overall genre and other brawlers. Speaking of style and vibe, it's hard not to have some deja vu with each of the stages that are offered. Maybe most obvious to me is the Underground, which mostly takes place on a subway car, and this just screams Final Fight and feels almost like a reboot at times given how well things are done here. Without giving too much away, the last stage takes place in a mansion. There are some other subtle nods throughout the game as well, including the main introduction, which features Claire receiving a call via telephone to set up the story. Again, very Final Fight. There's no denying the roots and inspiration of this game, and I absolutely love that. Oh, and it would be a crime to mention vibe and then not talk about the audio of this game. I really like the little sayings each of the characters tend to spit out during battles, and the overall sound effects for the game are pretty good as well. But the music, the tracks for this game, they're absolutely phenomenal. Now, after Xeno Crisis, I really wondered how Bitmap Bureau would replicate that level of awesomeness for their next game. Well, they did, with the help of Utah Saints and FeatureCast. The background techno and dance beats really mix well with the vibe of this one in a way that was pretty unexpected to me. I can't really explain it, as I'd almost think of that genre of music being more in line with something sci-fi like a shooter. But man, I am glad I wasn't making the decisions on that, because these two groups killed the music for this game. It's awesome, and every bit as an addition to the overall feel of Final Vendetta as the audio in Xeno Crisis was. This is definitely one of those games where the throw-in bonus CD would be worthwhile and not just some add-on grab for more money. I would genuinely want that disc. Sadly though, I found out I missed out on that opportunity, at least here in the US. You guys all know I've had a lot going on here personally lately and have just been living in my own world, and the night that I started working on this video, I realized was the day pre-orders for the physical copies of the game closed at limited run games. So it kind of sucks, but I am fortunate to have this game digitally for both Steam and Nintendo Switch. It's of course also available for PS4, PS5, and Xbox as well. So pretty much everyone who wants to play this has a decent shot at having one of those formats and can grab it. As for some of the more nuanced systems like Evercade and even a possible Neo Geo release, I reached out to ask for the latest update on that and was told that the Neo Geo release is in the works. It will happen and be coming sometime in the future. Evercade is still a question mark as of right now. So I hope that it's clear how much I've enjoyed playing this game. It's the true definition of something that is easy to pick up but difficult to master, and I just love that arcade element to it. I can work my way through this game somewhat regularly at this point with Duke, with the help of picking up the hidden extra lives in each stage, but I really don't think I'm using the block button or dash very effectively, and that's just one of those elements of the game that I'm going to have to continue to flush out on my own here if it's something that I want to explore and get better at. So that's the really cool part about this game that I think I want to stress as my key point and takeaway. It's a fun arcade game that's easy to play, but has a level of depth to it if you want to invest the time. Kind of the mark of greatness, which I've now come to expect from Bitmap Bureau. You know, I just mentioned Neo Geo, and I have a little hesitation in making a bold claim here, but when this comes over and is ported to SNK's console, and if the gameplay remains intact the way it is here on modern systems, it would likely be the best beat-em-up on the Neo Geo. There, I said it, and I hope that it happens. I'd once again like to thank Bitmap Bureau and Numskull Games for the opportunity to play and reveal Final Vendetta for you guys on the channel today. It's always fun to be a part of a release like this and then watch the other videos and see what my peers had to say. Being an arcade-centric channel, I just don't get to do that very often, but that's a fun little payoff for me to see where we may have aligned and where we may have thought differently about some things. But anyways, you should go watch those other videos. Final Vendetta is available today, June 17th. Grab a copy for yourself and enjoy this great beat 'em up and support a really talented team of indie developers who are crafting new games based on iconic arcade-style gameplay. I really hope that we continue to see more titles coming from Bitmap Bureau. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you all next time. Later, guys.